I'm Pushysix, and behind me I have a brand new Cat 627K scraper. Twin engine scraper. First look at it, I'm going to go around and explain a bunch of different parts to explain about the machine, a little bit of lingo. So if you're in a machine, you know the basic parts of the machine. I'm going to be explaining, a little bit of in-depth detail. So let's get going here. We'll start at the front. This is a bail. It's called a bail. Use this to hook onto the rear of another scraper doing a push pull. Right here you got the push block. Inside this push block is a big cushion spring. So when you hook up to the scraper in front of you, there's not a huge impact. It's like a suspension for when you hook up or tag up to the other machine. So you're going to want to pull up, hook up to that machine, put down your bail, and you can start push pulling. Now, in a basic push pull operation, the lead scraper always starts cutting first. He's going to get a load on. Once he gets a full load on, he's going to lift his bowl up, and that's time for the guy in the rear to start loading. Once the front scraper has a full load of dirt on, he weighs 3 times as much as he did when he's empty. This is essential for traction. So typically the guy in the rear will have a bigger load than the guy in the front because he's being pulled by a scraper that weighs a lot more and gets more traction. So that's typically what happens. Now this bail right here, they're expensive. Try not to turn too much or you'll break this bail. Now, something people don't really know about is, why is the bail half black? The bail is half black so there's less reflection on the bail in the operator's eyes when you're sitting inside the cab. That bright orange sometimes can have reflection from the sun and stuff like that, so they paint it black. They don't paint the whole machine black because a black machine, you can't see if there's any leaks on the machine. You can't really tell where it's coming from. So with the orange, you can see a lot better. Shit that's breaking, cracks, leaks, stuff like that. This is the bail here. In the inside, you got a joystick that controls the bail up and down. Very basic. In the front here, you got some fuses for the cab, for the key switch, for a bunch of different things, easy access. Going around the side here, you have the cab filter. So inside the cab, it's pressurized, and you got a cab filter, so you got the AC on, and it's not sucking dust in and throwing it in the cab for you to breathe. Right here you got the master switch. So before you even start, you got to turn on the master power to the scraper. If you don't, you can't start it, you can't do nothing, right? So got the master right here, has a lock if you so wish to lock it. Right here you got a plug in. It's a little bit too hot in California to plug this machine in, but where I'm from, you want to have it plugged in overnight. So we'll start in the morning. And then right here you got the stop switch. This will turn off the engine. Going around, we got a big wheel here. This wheel drives, so there's a transmission on the front, there's an engine in the front that drives both wheels on each side. What you can't see inside this wheel is there's a bunch of gears inside the wheel. It's called a planetary. So it's very important that the oil level is up in this because those gears will, they'll wear down and they'll break apart like a diff in the back of a rear truck, right? If the gear oil isn't in there, it'll just explode, right? So these are expensive. You want to check the oil right here. It has, it shows you where it's supposed to be parked to check the level perfectly. Got a little pin here. You can see that this cab will lift up. This cab has rubber suspension in here, so extra suspension. Brand new on the Kseries, we have a plastic fender. To some that may seem silly, but sometimes you get, you'll have a rock or a piece of frost stuck in the grip of the tire, and it'll bend the fender, right? So it may bend into the tire, and if the operator doesn't know that there's something caught in there and the fender's bent in towards the tire, you drive while this is bent into the tire, you just wasted 15 grand on a tire. So these are plastic, won't hurt the tire if it gets bent into it, and plastic, light, you can just undo some bolts and replace it quite easy. Got AC up there for inside the cab, nice out of the way, going up here into the neck. So this neck is what connects the trailer to the cab body. This hitch will pop up. It has suspension within the neck. It's like air ride, but it's not air, it's nitrogen. So you want to hop in, you want to put your neck up, so you have the suspension as you're driving. However, when you're in the cut, push, pulling, whatever, you want to turn off the cushion. This will keep you level and cutting consistently. It's a little bit rougher, but you want to have it turned off as you're cutting. As soon as you get a full load, you can turn the cushion back on and you'll have your full suspension. You can haul ass to the fill, the cut, whatever, right? So back here, we've got the transmission. Under here, we got transmission guard, stuff like that, you know, stop from rocks, hitting the transmission, and it's quite complex back here. There's a transmission pump and the transmission, and the lines are all connected to everything. Right there is the hydraulic tank. Right here are your steering cylinders. So as you turn the machine, the cab connected to the trailer, it articulates in the middle. Those are what control that function. So right here is the main neck, like the strongest part on the machine. That connects to the draft tube. This draft tube is hollow and there's wires that go through here. Right here we got the lift cylinders. These will lift the whole bowl up and down. Right here, this front wall is the apron. So in here you can see there's little holes, so you can see from inside the cab when you look back, you can see the dirt fill up inside the bowl. Right here is what's called a dog bone. That connects the apron cylinder to the actual apron. That controls the up and down function. Down below there you got a drop center. So that edge right there is lower than the side ones. On the side, on the very side, you get, it's called the corner bit. But that drop center, the point of that is to cut more force in the middle. As you cut more force in the middle than the sides, you can cut the ground easier, and it creates a rolling effect within the bowl. So it reduces the friction, the pressure of the machine in the dirt, and makes it load easier. Typically, having a drop center is made for working in clay, heavy material. You don't want a drop center on a machine that will like finish the site, because you know, it doesn't leave a nice finish. There's a little cut mark deeper everywhere than everywhere else. So keep going around here. Draft arm, very important. This right here is what holds all the weight of the trailer. So you want to look for cracks in this thing. You don't want one to crack. If this cracks and you have a full load and you're hauling ass 8th gear, this will snap, the bowl will hit the ground, and you may rip the neck right off of the cab. So it's important to check for cracks in the outside, inside, up, down, everywhere on the draft arm. Right here is something called a trunnion. A trunnion, most people don't really know about, but that's how you connect, whether it's a dozer blade to a dozer, you know, big parts connecting together. This is a trunnion. It connects quite simple. Inside here is a ball. So these pieces wrap around the ball. These actually don't take grease. They're made to be greaseless. And so, you know, if you're trying to grease the machine, you won't find a grease nipple there. They're made to be like that. Up here we got the sod rack. That sod rack is important to, as you load, it'll flop the dirt ahead, going into the bowl, makes a rolling motion, and stops the dirt from going on the tank. On this Kseries, it has a plastic tank, so it's quite important that big chunks of dirt, big shards of dirt don't fall on top of that tank. You can crush the whole tank and lose all your fuel, so that is no good. Inside here we have the ejector wall. As you load dirt, it fills up. The way you eject it is there's a switch in the cab, you hit the ejector, it pushes out the load. The back of the ejector, so on here there's a ram that will push out the ejector. The ram is a single ram, but it's two-stage, so it'll push out and then it'll push out even further, and that's what pushes and ejects the whole load out. Now back here, you don't want to get a bunch of dirt back here. There's a bunch of components that you know, can get wrecked with big rocks and chunks of dirt. It runs on a roller system, so on the floor of the pan, it rolls back and forth, nice and easy as it ejects. On this one, it has an auto eject, so you push a button, it'll push it out. It also has a auto float, so as soon as you dump your load, you hit the switch and it'll put the ejector right back in the starting position, which you want for when you go get another load, right? So a big thing no one really talks about is driving empty from the fill back to the cut with the ejector all the way forward. It may seem fine, but what's not fine is this hydraulic ram back here is fully extended from right here all the way here. As it's extended that long, it's basically flopping in the inside where you can't see because it's hidden. So before you haul ass back to the cut, put the ejector back, and you know, it'll save the life of the components and the whole ram system that works the ejector. We're at the back here. This is a twin engine, so it's 4-wheel drive. Front engine drives the whole front. Another engine in the back drives the whole back. There's a separate transmission, separate everything really for the back. So these will talk and communicate, get synced in at the same time. So works as a 4-wheel drive with 2 different power sources. Up here you got a steel fender, which is good to have on the back. Most times you put the tire with the most wear on the back. You don't want to have bald tires on the front because those are your driving and steering tires. If you have a blowout, you're going to crash. On the back, you know, you can have a very old tire, bald, whatever, and if it blows, as it blows, you know, it's safe blowing here. It's all metal and it's going to be protected. The guy in the cab isn't going to crash. It's going to be really loud, but quite safe. Going back up here, we got the engine, we got a little toolbox up there. I see on this new model they have some nice new steps here. These fold down and they're rubber. So if they're down and you don't know that they're down and it hits a chunk of dirt, it's just gonna move the rubber. It's not gonna break off the metal, right? So that's why you see the rubber steps. It's you know, so you don't wipe the things right off the machine. The rubber is flexible, stuff like that. So up in the engine there, you got a giant, there's filter, there's transmission fill, there's all sorts of stuff up there. This is a new Tier 4 engine, so it has a regen system in there, all those big shiny pipes and big shiny containers up there. That's the regen system. So what happens is the soot from the diesel sulfur gets collected inside of that regen system and burns off at like 2000 Celsius or whatever, and that's how they clean this soot out of the exhaust. Back here you have your rear master. So when you first hop in the machine, you want to get the thing going in the morning, first things you do, turn on the front master, turn on the rear master. This will give your machine full power and you can start it. You can start this rear engine by climbing up on the other side at the back. You can do it that way, or you can turn on both masters, hop in the cab, start the front engine from the cab, and you can start the rear engine also from the cab. Okay, so right here we got the front engine going. We're going to start the back. Now the rear engine is running. Nice and easy, you don't have to crawl up on the back and start the rear engine. Going along the back, this is the tail. You know, it's kind of named as the beaver tail. That's kind of the lingo for it. So if you hear beaver tail, you know exactly what part of the machine your foreman may be talking about. This is the bail hook. This also has a nickname. You know, depending where you live, it may be called a bail hook or it may be called a stinger. If you hear a stinger, it might be meaning this part. However, where I live, it's called a bail hook, and the drop center on the edge that I explained already, we call that the stinger. So I explained all that already, but there's some lingo. Up here you have a cage, so when the rear scraper pulls up with that push block cushion, you hook up to this, you apply pressure until it's all the way, and then you put the bail down. So that bail will hit that cage safely, it's meant to do it, and it'll slide down and it'll lock into that hook right there. Once that happens, you can start push pulling. The guy in the front will lead, he'll load first, the guy in the back will load second. Now, when you're done loading, there's a few different techniques that you can do to unhook. The guy in the front can't see if you're hooked to the back here. So in the past, you know, you would have to lift your bail up and turn your cab to the side so the guy in the front knows you're unhooked and he can, you know, go faster out of the cut. But on this model, it has a camera. Inside the cab, it has 3 cameras. So there's the side, apron, back. On this model, you can switch to that camera and see that your partner in the back is unhooked and it's safe to go. So awesome new feature on this thing. Right here, you use this to pull out the machine if it's stuck or broke down, whatever. So you'll use like a big braided wire cable with a big loop on the end. You put that loop right here. So this is made to pull the entire weight of the entire machine out on that single point. So that's extremely strong right there. Up here you got another fold down ladder that goes down further, and it's down right now, it goes up. Lock in position. You see if this hits a big chunk of dirt, it doesn't break off, it just, you know, flexes. So you go up here, you got oil fill, you can check your oil, you got all sorts of stuff up there. There's locks for the fuel and a bunch of different things. On this side you got the fuel filters. I can see the fuel rail up there. There's a fuel primer, it's electric. So if you were to run out of fuel by accident, you know, you need to prime a diesel engine, so you can't have air in the system. It's not like a gas engine, you just put gas in it and restart it. A diesel doesn't work like that. So if you run it out of fuel, it puts air in the fuel filters and it won't start. So you go up there, you find the electric fuel primer, you hold it, it'll suck fuel through the whole system, fill up the fuel filters, and prime the system. So once you do that, then you can start it, and that's kind of how the diesel fuel system works. Simple explanation. Up there you got the box, that box up there, a bunch of electronics, but this will sync to the front engine and sync the transmission speeds and the RPMs, all that to match. You don't want to have your rear engine out of sync with your front engine, because this wheel will be going at a whole different speed than your other wheel, but not really a big concern for operators. Up there we got the pre-cleaner for the air. That's going to get extended up higher. The higher the better, so it's out of the dust. There's also an exhaust pipe that's going to get installed on there, but that's going to be done here soon. This is brand new, just got dropped off, so it's not done yet. Going around, we've got the fuel tank. This right here is the quick fill. So on some fuel trucks, they got a quick fill, you know, so you just hook up to this and you can fill it. Now it'll turn off by itself, and if for some reason that it doesn't turn off the fuel, there's this line right here for the overflow. So if the tank gets too full, or you're going with a full tank and it's splashing around inside the tank, you know, the tank will expand and the fuel will expand with the heat, right? So as it expands, it might be overflowing a little bit, and there's a fuel return system that goes to the tank. If the engine doesn't use all the fuel that's being put to it, it comes back, and if there's too much, it'll come out this this tube right here and just kind of spill on the ground a little bit. Back on this side here, we got the draft arm, explained that already, and wall of the scraper, super sturdy. You don't ever really see those ripped apart or broke, whatever, but these draft arms are important. This holds all the way to the machine, so like I said before, inspect everything. Now over on this side here, all these lines that come from the front here, they're for the hydraulics, the bowl lift cylinders up and down, and there's wires that go through the draft arms and underneath to go to that rear engine, that box there that sinks the front to the back. It all comes through somewhere, and it comes through the draft arm, draft tube, through the neck, into the cab. Right here we got the hydraulic tank. So right here you can see it's right on perfect level. So yeah, there's a bunch of components back here. You don't want to back over big loads or whatever, you know, you can damage this stuff quite easy. So you can control how much dirt comes out and how thick by how much you open this apron, right? So just keep in mind these parts back here that you can't see. You want to make sure that no big rocks or big chunks fall on top of all these hoses, right? So going around, we've got another plastic fender. I explained about that already. Tires up here is where the engine is, up top. You know, you can check the oil. You can check a bunch of different stuff, and then there's air filters for the engine and stuff like that, all up there. Nice ladder. So this isn't rubber, but it's on a cable. So these are quite tough. So if you hit big chunks of dirt, this also won't break. Sometimes they get ripped off, but not a huge deal. The bolts will break, and then you can just put a new bolt with your step. Going to the front here, they got lots of lights and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, I've ran machines at nighttime, and it sucks not having proper lighting. Like it makes the job of an operator quite hard. So lots of lights on this thing. Right here we got, it's for the DEF fluid for the regen system. So that's there, has a lock on it. You know, in here we got the front grill. Inside that grill you got an intercooler, you know, you got antifreeze, rad in there, all sorts of stuff all right there. So, you know, you can see it through that grill there. You want to make sure that you keep debris, like there's grass and dust that'll build up there. You want to make sure that's clean. You know, there's even a cooler for the transmission, right? So if it gets plugged up with dirt, stuff like that, you want to get that either washed out, or you can blow it out with air. But if that gets plugged up, your machine's going to start to overheat in every which way, and that is no good. Down here, you got a bunch of clearance down here, and there's this big pan down here. This protects the whole machine, you know, from rocks. You know, as an operator, you know, there's a bunch of debris that might fall on the haul road, or you're trying to pick up a big rock. You're able to drive over a rock this big and not hurt that machine there. So that's thick steel. And next we'll be going inside the cab, but I just want to kind of touch on the cab from the outside here. You got a bunch of windows. Now this front window here is amazing. You can see so much because this window is now extended down, and you can see your full bale, you can see everything, right? So I love the new front window. To be honest, it looks kind of goofy, but it's necessary. The cab is amazing. We'll go in there next.